One might be some points of contention on this. There's no such thing as cheating in music production, right? All the time, people will be like, "Oh, you used a loop," or "Oh, I've heard that here." "Oh, that sample that like, oh, use this, use that." There's been plenty of times when I've produced a track where I've found a bass loop. I've dropped it into a percussion and a kick loop that I have, some sort of groove I'm building, and the bass loop worked perfectly, and I didn't change anything.
Okay, on my YouTube channel, we have a series called 5 Things Producers Need to Know. I thought I'd get you on that series. So I was going to ask you 5 things producers need to know. This is basically something you might tell your younger self, or could be production, could be DJing, could be just life advice.
Yeah.
So let's go for it. Number 1.
Yeah, and this is probably going to stick to production stuff. I wrote down a couple notes because I knew you were probably going to ask something like this. Yeah. So I think this one, I was just number 1. If you want to get really good fast, like if you want to get good at production really fast, just copy people's tracks. And so what I mean from this is like, don't like copy people's tracks and then be like, oh, go release them. I mean, you can, because normally 90% of the time you're not going to make something that's an exact carbon copy, right? You're going to make something that's different. But if you want to get like really good, if you want to do like months of years of progress in a couple months, just do the grunt work of literally copying people's tracks, right? Take it, load it up into Ableton or your DAW or whatever, and literally copy the sounds, the arrangement, the mix, the everything, right? And you just, you get this incredible like training for your production to where you're selecting the right sounds, you're mixing things properly, you're getting your arrangements down. So again, like the basic message is just to take tracks and literally copy them. And it can be really annoying when you do like 10 of them, because you just get like frustrated and you don't feel like you're actually creating anything. You're just copying stuff. And that is kind of true in essence, but you will make some pretty awesome headway really, really quickly if you do that. So yeah, if you want to get good fast, copy tracks.
I bet you don't even come out the same. I bet it doesn't sound the same.
It doesn't.
Because I bet you can't get the same sounds.
What always happens is like you'll copy it for like 80% of the time, and then all of a sudden you'll get a point of inspiration, and then you'll go on your own, right? And you'll do something different. But ultimately, I think the biggest thing too is you get a really good ear for sound selection, selecting the right samples, right? Stuff that sounds good by listening to people's professional tracks, right? Oh, his hat sounds like that. Let me go find a hat. Right? A hi-hat that sounds like that. And then you'll take it. Oh, okay, that fits. And it literally just trains your ears like subconsciously without you even knowing. So yeah.
That's cool. Number 2.
Yeah. I wrote down, give new techniques their time, right? When you're learning like a new technique, whether it's for building drums or a bass line or whatever it is, right? You got to give it like 2 or 3 weeks and you got to try it multiple times. If it doesn't work out the first time, don't scrap it. I remember specifically after I worked with Iglesias, he basically taught me like a backwards approach to building my grooves and my loops. Because normally I find most producers, when they start a track, they'll start with the kick and then they'll go to the drums, or they'll start with the kick, they'll go to the bass line, then go to the drums, right? What I do is I start with the percussion, right? I start with the drums and the groove, the loop and all that percussion, right? And then after that, I go to the kick. And then after that, I go to the bass line, right? And so like the philosophy behind this, and I think it makes sense, this comes again from Iglesias, from Joe, is it's much easier to find a kick and fit it into a percussion loop than it is to take a kick and fit 20 percussion loops around it, right? That's kind of the philosophy. And so when I started that technique, it took me like 2 weeks to get it down. And like, I made a bunch of shitty loops for 2 weeks, but I just kept pushing through, and now it's 3 years later, and that's the only way I do it too. And when people see me produce too, they're like, wait, you don't start with the kick? It's like, no, I'm going to do this. And then I'm going to find that one kick that just fits nicely into it. And it just, now that I've been doing it for years, it's easy.
That's cool. Number 3. Makes sense.
Number 3, mixing is 90% sound selection. If you pick the right samples for your track, then the mix is going to be easy. This is something that took me a long time to learn too, especially when I was first starting out, I thought that like mixing was about, like proper EQ and compression and doing this and blending that, doing that, all these sort of techniques. It's like, no, it's about literally like how your kick blends with your hats and your snare and all that sort of stuff. It's about the right sound selection. At the end of the day, when it comes to my mix downs, I do very light EQing. The majority of my mixing is done with just volume, just gain automation. And then obviously I process all my sounds and my groups at the, as I get towards the final mix down. But yeah, it's about sound selection. And again, this stems back to that step number one. You can get really good at sound selection by copying tracks, right? Because you just train your ears to know what sounds good. And to know what fits. But yeah, if you're working on a mix down and you got like 3 EQs on your kick, and you're doing all these cuts and dips and boosts and this and that sort of stuff and all the different various elements to your tracks, that's a pretty big clue, pretty big insight to you did some, how can I say this in a soft way? You did some shitty sound selection, and now you're trying to make it work, right? You shouldn't be trying crazy hard to make the mix work. It should be working as you build the song,
Number 4.
Number 4. What did I write down here? Oh yeah, this is a big one. Might be some points of contention on this. There's no such thing as cheating in music production. Right. All the time, people will be like, oh, you used a loop, or, oh, I've heard that here. Oh, that sample that, like, oh, use this, use that. There's been plenty of times when I've produced a track where I've found a bass loop. I've dropped it into, a percussion and a kick loop that I have, some sort of groove I'm building, and the bass loop worked perfectly. And I didn't change anything. It just worked. So I just said, what, screw it. I'm just going to keep going. Right. And so, that's happened from time to time with music loops and synth loops, that sort of stuff. You drop it in and it just works. Right. So you're just like, what, screw it. I'm just going to keep going. Right. Because ultimately, at like the end of the day, I always look at, okay, if 90% of this track or 95% of this track I made with sounds from scratch and manipulating loops and manipulating that and doing this and doing that, and then that 5% comes from some sample or some sample pack where I didn't necessarily do anything, it's just like, well, I mean, there's still so much effort and so much that I've put into this track. It still is mine, right? All this stuff being said, if you're just going to like take, because making music can be pretty easy now too. You can do a lot of dragging and dropping. If you want to, take loops and just drag and drop them and do all that sort of stuff, you can do it. Be my guest. I do not care. The only thing is labels are going to care. Because that kind of spark of originality or creativity is just not going to be there. So, there's no such thing as cheating in music production. Take whatever tools you have and just get the track done. Ultimately, though, if you are being like lazy with the majority of stuff, labels will pick up on it. So that's why I always say just like, hey, if you're going to drop something in, do some manipulation to it, chop it up, flip it, pitch it down, pitch it up, whatever it is. And also too, you end up getting like really cool, interesting stuff when you take like a loop and say, pitch it up 48 semitones, right? To like really like beyond what would actually sound good, right? Pitch it way up, put a bunch of effects on it, chop it up, take things, right? Whatever it is. But yeah, this is all to say that there's no cheating. So don't ever feel bad or feel like you didn't work hard enough just because you took a good bass loop from a pack and just plugged it in and it worked out. It's fine.
That's cool. Yeah. Skeleton Key says, big agree with this one. Los, what did Los say?
Yeah, don't get me wrong. There's going to be times where, you get somebody who just literally just took a bunch of loops and put it in and, again, the label's going to pick up on that and they're probably not going to sign it, So if that's going to be your mode of operation, be my guest, but it's just not going to kind of get you like anywhere. But yeah, a little bit of not moving things around is fine.
Let me know what you think in the comments if you're watching this on YouTube. I want to know. Number 5.
Yeah, I completely disagree. You got to build your own kicks, and build your own hi-hats. And I used to be that way too. It's like, oh, everything needs to be from scratch. And all my music sounded like shit. So
Number 5.
Don't overanalyze. just go fast. Yeah. Like when I'm selecting sounds, now because I trust my ears a lot more, I just go really quick. Like, oh, I'm selecting a kick. I'll scroll through like 3 or 4 kicks, and I go towards packs and kicks that I know have worked in my past tracks. So like I go through, and as soon as I hear something, I'm like, oh, that works. Boom. I put it in, I'm moving on to the next thing. I really try not to overanalyze. If it sounds like shit, basically my awareness of it sounding like crap will eventually come around. Right. Like I'll work on it, and then I'll take a pause on it for 2 days. I'll come back and oh, that kick doesn't sound good. Let me rip it out and put a new one in. Right. I try to work super, super quickly, and not overanalyze stuff. This happens too. A lot of like the beginning producers that I work with here in Charleston, they'll like send me a project file. I'll look through a project file of theirs or something like that. And their kick will have 4 layers, have like a sub layer, a mid layer, a top layer, and then a super high top layer. And it sounds like shit. And they spend hours on like developing this kick and trying to get it perfect, when in actuality, all you got to do is just go and find a good sample that fits, Yeah. So that's the last one. Don't overanalyze. And then I think, I had a bonus tip too, if you don't mind.
The Brucey bonus.
So this comes from a point of contention of like a kind of a pet peeve I have, and this is just for people who are kind of learning to produce and they want to get feedback. Please do not send loops and incomplete ideas to myself or to any other producers that you look up to. This is not a knock against you, right? It might be a cool loop or whatever it is, but the reason this is when I get sent a loop, right, I have no context. I have no understanding of where the track is going, what leads to the loop, what the arrangement looks like, how you build tension, how you subtract tension, add tension, all that sort of stuff. And there's been plenty of times where myself as a producer or other producers I know, they've started with like an average kind of loop, like not that great of a loop, but then they've been able to build a really good track out of it by their ability to do things like really good tension and release and then adding to it later on. And then also, I've also seen great loops that have turned into shit song because the arrangement was terrible, right? So that's my biggest thing, is just don't send incomplete ideas. Don't send things to people, say, oh, it's a rough mix down, it's not mixed yet. It's just like, just take the time, put your best foot forward. Even if the mix is rough, don't tell me that. Just do the best you can and send me a complete idea. That way I can actually give you solid feedback on what you might need to work on. There's just no feedback that I can give on a loop. And yeah, I get it a lot too. So that's the only reason why I'm kind of like on my soapbox right now, just saying it. It's again, I don't get mad at people, but it's just frustrating. It's just like, what do you want me to do with this? It's an 8-bar loop, like it's like, I can't go anywhere with it. All I can say is like, yeah, cool.
Love those, and love the Brucey bonus. That's wicked. Thank you.
Yeah.
Weren't those 5 things great? Let me know in the comments which is your favourite and your biggest takeaway from this video. Also, don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel so you get notified every time we drop new videos. YouTube is now going to recommend another video to help your learning further. I hope you enjoy that one. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers. Bye-bye.